Hello. Right. Okay. So the plan for tonight is to essentially, Lottie, you've already seen most of this, but for me to run through very quickly the talk that I did at the London meetup, and to run through the stages of engagement, which both I think Rachel and Niels you saw at the open space session very quickly. So I won't spend too much time on that. And then I'd quite like to talk about the idea that I've had for a practitioner's website, which I think is the way to get this initiative moving forwards. Does that sound good for everybody?
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Let me share my desktop one. Bit of technical stuff. All right. Number 4. It's actually number 3 because the original number 3 we didn't do. But anyway, yeah, so this was what I posted on Twitter about what we're going to do tonight, with the focus on discussion and brainstorming around how the practitioner's website could serve as a hub for non-dev roles, specifically driven by community ambassadors in those roles. So I think that's a key point for how I think this will work. Where's my clicker's not working because I've on that. There we go. All right. So this was the original premise for practitioners about encouraging more community engagement with non-developers. And then you've all seen this before, like this is where the Umbraco community currently sits, and all of these people are also interested and have value to add. So in order to get them engaged, we need to show them a benefit and then encourage them to contribute back to the community and to the product. All right. And then everybody ends up in the community. This is the path to engagement thing that I showed kind of just on my laptop screen at the open space session at Code Garden. So it's thinking about whereabouts people who aren't developers might sit in terms of engagement with Umbraco. So obviously at one end is not having any knowledge at all of Umbraco, in which case we need to provide those people with education about Umbraco. What is it? What it can do? That sort of thing. And obviously the different people in different roles need to know or understand different things about Umbraco. So there's some ideas in here about how we might do that in terms of learning sessions and demos. Once people know about it, there's an element of trying to make sure that people feel like they belong. And I think this is something that a lot of people talk to me about when I chat to them about this, is that the communication channels feel very dev focused at the moment, the existing communication channels. And I think it's right that they are, because it is a developer based product, and I think we need to tread carefully about doing things that dilute that, but we also need to not put off people who aren't developers with the channels that we use. This is even if you feel like you belong, you need to know what you as a non-developer get from, why should you be involved in this community. So that is about demonstrating value and sharing content, sharing tools that are relevant to people in non-developer roles, encouraging people to get involved and interact. So that's getting people along to physical or virtual meetups, using tools and content and resources in their work, developing that sense of belonging to the community. And then the last one is about encouraging contribution. So not just contribution of content or tools that will help other people, but also contributing their skills to Umbraco to make it a better product. All right, so that's just a little framework that I've thrown together. I think all 3 of you have seen that before, but I don't know if you've got any thoughts on it before I move on. No, good. All right. So then this bit I talked about at the London meetup is that it's hard to do this with people who are not already in the community, particularly through the medium of this meetup, because it's hard to get people interested or engaged in a meetup that doesn't feel like they need to be engaged to come along to this, but the target audience is missing here. I think there are issues with a very broad scope for this meetup, and it's hard to get traction And so I think that we need a solution for practitioners that has a permanent presence and is driven by the community and provides relevant value to people. So the idea I had is for this website. Don't think of this as a design. This is I'll show you this bigger in a minute. But this is just a purple wireframe, if you like, for an idea for a website. And the idea is that people come along to the Umbraco Practitioners website and they think about what they choose, what they actually do in their role. So if your role involves project management, or your role involves UI design or UX design or copywriting or whatever, you choose what you do. And then you're presented with a series of articles or discussions, either as blog posts on this site or articles on this site, or links to Twitter discussions, even like a thread on Twitter or a discussion on our Umbraco forum, something like that. So it could be within or sending people out to relevant conversations. It could be that if there is a meetup coming up or an event where there are particular speakers that are, if you're a front-end developer and there's a meetup, an Umbraco meetup where a speaker is a front-end developer or a project manager or whatever it is, that's worth highlighting to people in those roles, I guess. There might be various tools or resources that might be useful. I'm thinking off the top of my head, the UI kit and that kind of thing for particular roles, but there might also be tutorials, that sort of thing. And then it's about finding ways for people who are visiting the site to submit content themselves. So it's about driving and encouraging people to generate the content themselves. So I'm a UX designer and I found this article useful, so I'll submit it on here and then it can get posted on the website for other people in my role to find useful. I think that this will only work if we have people in specific roles managing the content or curating the content for other people in that role. I think that's super important because they know what people need, and it has to be driven by more than one person, otherwise it'll probably die. There is a community-based aspect to it, so if you want people to feel like they're in a community, you can show people other practitioners who are in the same role as them, so it gives people a way to contact or connect with people who are also in their position. There's a box there called How You Can Contribute, so that is about telling people about the RFC process, if that's relevant, or how to go and find accessibility issues on GitHub, that kind of thing. So just a list of ways that you can contribute, and then ways for people to reach out for help and advice. So this is all of that stuff a bit bigger, but there's nothing really to see here. So what I'm interested in tonight is to get what you think about what this could be. And I'm very happy for all of this stuff to be rubbish, but I think that what I'd quite like to do is to take where we are and then over the next few months get to a point where we can have a website live, driven not just by me, but by you and by other people in the community. I know that I spoke to Laura at the London meetup, Laura Weatherhead. She's very keen to be involved in the actual production of this from a build perspective. I think all of you guys have got ideas and expertise that should feed into this, and also an interest in it because you're here. So has anyone got any ideas or thoughts? I'm not going to do anything until somebody else speaks because I've run out of slides now. So no, I mean, it might be one of those things where we need to take it away and have a think about it a bit. Do we think it's a good idea? Is this a good way to make this work, this initiative?
So thinking about the meetups and events with content and speakers, we've had some of our clients have given talks at events about the websites that we've developed for them, but they've not specifically done it with respect to Umbraco, if that makes sense. So is that the kind of angle you're looking for, or is it more like, so like we used Umbraco, but it helped us did X rather than the implementation? Is that kind of what you're thinking, or?
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything. I mean, I think that is a good question, and it's a question that I'm not potentially capable of answering, because I don't know what a project manager needs to know about Umbraco, or that's why I think it requires people who are in those roles to step up and say, yeah, I'm happy to figure out what I think people need, and to champion it, and advertise it, and encourage people to submit content or write some content myself. I don't know the answer to that question, but I guess it could be anything. So I mean, I guess I'd turn the question around and say, this is not about what I'm thinking. It's more like, if you were coming here, what would you want to see?
I guess also that's something that perhaps would be up to the creator. Sorry, I'm sitting in the dark, I think. That would be what the creator's job would be, to kind of decide the relevance as well, on the assumption that content is created. It seems like a great idea to me. It's just going to be the proof in the pudding, if that phrase is right.
Yep, that is completely right. Yeah.
And so if like a prototype could be built as soon, as rapidly as possible, so that some actual content could start getting added, then I think that would be, it definitely seems worth pursuing to me, because there is nothing like it. And even though we know the developers are well catered for, but that's in terms of answers to problems that they ask on the forum. There's still a lot of distributed content here, there, and everywhere that is hard for people to find. So I went to a different open space actually at Code Garden 1, which was about trying to link up all the different things that people do.
Yeah.
And it seems that there's a kind of tie over here as well, because you're just trying to surface everything that's related to the project manager, to take that as the role. And it's definitely something that we just don't have anything like at the moment, and this seems like a very well thought out site to try, if you ask me.
Yeah, I also think there's a couple of things as well. Is that the first thing is that you could have, I haven't really necessarily shown it here, but the idea was to not show it in any detail, because it sort of inhibits creative thinking a bit, I suppose. But there could be something on here that says, okay, you've come to this website as somebody in a particular role, and there might not be stuff on here that you wanted to find out, but what was it that you wanted to find out? And that gives you a way of finding out what ought to be on here, which is something that I think is also missing to an extent, is that we don't really know what people are looking for. Certainly not in a specific sense for a particular role, but this gives a channel for doing that. I think the other thing that I quite like about this is that you can start small. You can start with one role. You can say, okay, we'll just do it for, I don't know, content editors or something to start with. Where is something where we got a decent amount of people that we know in the community who would be interested enough, and start the ball rolling. And then when you get a bit of traction, and you know that somebody's come along as a UX designer and they're interested in this, you can then add UX design on as a role, and then carry on. You can just keep adding roles to it, and once you've got the interest and the people to do it. So have any of you got ideas for how it could work? I mean, I'm slightly, so for example, if we're getting into the detail of it, I'm unsure about this making people choose a role at the beginning of the user journey, I suppose, because it requires people to kind of self-identify in a way that people don't like doing a bit. And as a sort of barrier to entry. So it might be that the default view is everything that there is, and you could just filter it down to the role that you're interested in. I don't know. I haven't really got my head into the detail like that yet, but these are all kind of next conversations, I suppose.
I mean, for me, as a small business, I think I have 4 roles.
Yeah.
So the idea of sort of, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, yeah, well, I'd look at it first at project management, then I'd flip it over and look at, I don't know, whatever another one might be. And so actually, perhaps it would be a case of, having a filter so that you could look at several at once, because people do. Then it's less of a an issue quite what you start out with in terms of the list there.
Yeah, and I guess each piece of content or each entry could be tagged with multiple roles, so it could appear as something that's relevant to more than one type of person as well. So
will it be possible to have several roles chosen? I mean, I could easily think of me having 3 or 4 as well, as Lotte said.
Yeah, I mean,
or
that's
do you just think one role, or I mean, there might be something I don't want to miss out on in UI, even though I'm not a UI designer or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think I struggled a little bit with this because I don't want to use job titles here, like I'm a UI designer, because different people use different terminology for different job functions. So it's more like I was trying to find a way of making it describe what your role involves rather than what you call yourself at work. So it's that might be something that needs thinking about. But yeah,
I think it's a good idea if I just can choose. Maybe if I want to pick more than one, then it could be a good idea.
Yeah.
If I'm able to do that.
Yeah, and there's also, I guess, the opportunity for I mean, okay, so another step on, you could register on the website. You could have preferences that say, okay, these are the roles that I'm interested in, and it saves it in your profile, and then you come on and it already knows that you're these 4 things, and it shows you what you're interested in straight away. And that's fine. It's another layer of complexity in the build, but makes it more valuable. There's all kinds of things like that sort of could be done, I suppose. I've got starring as well, so some sort of sense of favoriting stuff that you might want to come back and like keep track of. I don't know.
I'm thinking this is a great idea. I think we need to test it with content editors and project managers. What information do they need? Is this the right approach for them? Because I'm not a content editor or a project manager.
Yeah.
So, because once we've built the site, we've got to put the content in that's relevant for them.
Yeah.
All the events or whatever. So it's. I think we need to talk to content editors and project managers and see.
I mean, I guess my follow-up question from that is that who's going to do that?
Yes,
I mean, I think that is the point. Is that it needs this. This is a sort of side project, isn't it? But it's a side project that needs to have a sort of team behind it that are prepared to go and talk to people in their organisations about it and report back, so that we can feed that information into the process a little bit. So, and I mean, I in my role, I get a certain amount of that, but there's a bunch of stuff, like 1 million things that I don't know, maybe more than 1 million. I don't know. There's over 10 things I don't know. So I really want that kind of the evolution, the conception of this to be something that's done by a team of people, not just and like we've got some here. I don't know if you guys are interested in being super involved in that, or how much time people have got, because I know that time is an issue as well. But there's no massive pressure time-wise. I'd rather we had a decent sense of what we're trying to achieve and what would work, and do it over time. I just think we need to make sure we're not just talking about it. That's all.
Yeah, I understand.
For term of content editors, we're talking about people whose job it is to keep websites up to date. I'm just stating the obvious, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it could be in agency. It could be that your agency has people whose job it is to populate a site before it's launched or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Or it could
Because
be.
otherwise, I was thinking that if you end up with client content editors, of course, everyone's implementation of Umbraco is significantly different, and so sharing knowledge from one side may not make any sense to some other people, and so I don't know how easy that one is going to be. But yeah, if we could find some.
Yeah, I mean, it may be that.
I was trying to think, as a content editor, I want to know how my implementation works.
Yeah.
For my company, probably not. But then I probably want to know if it's a really if someone's doing something really good on their website. I probably want to know. And they've said they're using Umbraco, how they manage that.
Yeah, I mean, equally, it might be that some roles don't suit this particularly, and what we ought to do is work out what that is, what they are, where the value is, and concentrate on those first. So obviously, the accessibility team is a great example of this. If your job involves, accessibility auditing, it's not a traditional role, but you can see immediately how an accessibility person could benefit Umbraco. But would this be somewhere where they would want to come and find out stuff? I don't know. I think that UI designers, UI designers is potential, UX designers is potential. Even, I don't know. I mean, project management probably. I had a comment from somebody after the London meetup where they were thinking that this might be useful for on the business side at the client end. They want to know what Umbraco can do and how it works, and it might be that there's a place where they can see more generic, even if it's just links to places on Umbraco's website where it's like, I want to know what it can do, why I should buy it. Here are the, not buy it, but I'll buy it from an agency. And apart from the Umbraco website, is there this is sort of community driven? I don't know. Maybe that's not right.
Maybe it could also be like we talked about it, Mike. Some really cool cases that people can contribute with, and not going into the technical details, but I really like when they showed the ice cream robot. I think that was a really cool case, but I hadn't seen it. If I was not Umbraco, I mean, I hadn't seen it, and I'm just thinking about I want that machine and that setup. But I mean, a case like that, you could also share that to get people inspired. I mean, that's not necessarily from an Umbraco point of view, but of course you use it as the technology, but then more talking about what can we actually do with this. I mean, it's not Umbraco faced, but for me as a project manager, it gives me some ideas. As also I can go to our more creative persons and starting them to think what could we actually do with these things in campaigns and for companies that has some cool events we can use this for.
Yeah, I mean, on one of the previous practitioners meetups, we talked a little bit about how if you're a front-end web designer, like a creative UI designer, how useful it would be for you to know how doc types and data types are constructed in Umbraco, and just generally how designing for something that is content managed differs from designing from something that's not content managed, and what you need to think about and use Umbraco as the examples for that sort of thing. So I think that's right. I think there's all kinds of ways. It's just about matching the content with the need for that content that's a little bit undefined at the moment.
Yeah, because I'm concerned that we don't want it to be another script or a replication of the case studies on our.
No.
It's got to be like some really interesting stuff to drive people to it, like the ice cream thing he mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there must be lots of case studies that agencies put on their own websites,
Yeah.
and just never make it onto umbraco.com. And so this would give them another platform. I mean, if it's just, they'll want it to link through to their agency website, but that's fine, because this is kind of a consolidation of all these other things, just helping people find it.
Yeah, it's all
I
out
kind
there.
of feel like it's a home for all the people who come to the meetups, so the London meetups, which we try, but they are quite dev focused, who come along regardless. And I kind of think this is kind of giving them the content that we possibly don't always cater for. And I think there would be lots of people that you could approach, because they're obviously community minded. I'm not going to start naming names, but they're obviously community minded, but aren't devs.
Yeah.
We've talked about a business kind of meetup in London, but it never really got anywhere. But I know the people who were thinking about doing that, so I'm sure we should be able to find people if we can explain it sort of concisely as to what we're looking for and when, really.
Yeah, I think you could use the cases again, the ice cream robot, but I found someone who integrated Alexa and Google Home to actually you can talk to your site, and then it could publish new content on your site just by speaking to your website. I mean, that's also a cool thing, but I just randomly found it. I mean, there could also be an idea to get business people's minds starting to think about what can we use this for.
Yeah, they don't need to know how it works. They just need to know that someone's done it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's an idea sparking device.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Yoka from Belgium, and she went. She was at the open space session, and she went away and talked to her functional analysts, and they came back and said they just need to know what it can do, which is an interesting response, because it can do loads of stuff.
Yeah.
So how do you distill that into little examples of cool stuff it can do that they might be interested in finding out about? I don't know.
Which case studies really is the most interesting way of answering that problem, is that question rather, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is this as well. I see a lot of little threads of conversations on Twitter that are very specific to certain scenarios. So there was I don't know, there was a conversation that Anthony Dang was having last night on Twitter about what you call bits of a website that are like the header and the footer and the navigation. And there was, what is it? It's called like a site shell or furniture or whatever it is. And there's a little thread about that stuff. That's kind of interesting, but that arrives on Twitter and then it goes away on Twitter and it's lost completely. And if there was a way someone could go, I think people in my role would be interested in that, I'm just going to grab the link to that thread and post it in a thing on here, so that people who are in that role might find a way to come across it. It might need to be a little bit more Umbraco specific than that, but you get the idea. That kind of ephemeral conversation stuff is easy to lose in terms of its value. So
yeah, actually I saw in a Danish forum the other day, which is about SEO and stuff like that, but then somebody said it was just a weird rumor that said, well, you can't do SEO with Umbraco, you cannot do that. I mean, it's not true, but there's some myths out there that you could also maybe help debunk with this, probably in an Umbraco job, HQ job. But I mean, practitioners can share how did we do this if you're working with SEO or a marketeer or something like that. That could also be, I mean, Umbraco is fine for SEO if you just know what to do with it. Could be an idea as well.
Yeah. Or even people like Richard, who have got an SEO package, might want to put something on here about that. I don't know. It's gets a little bit advertising-y, so we might need to have a think about where we draw the line on that stuff. But I think that stuff is super useful. Okay.
Is it?
I have to leave now. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's absolutely fine. Thanks for coming along.
Yeah,
Good
thank
work.
you.
And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
See you next week, I
Bye.
think. Yep.
Yes.
Going back to this this thing here, I was trying to, with the website, I think I was trying to find ways of meeting all of these things. So wherever you are on this structure, the website is providing education. It makes it feel like it belongs to you because it's about what you do in your role.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're getting value from it because there's discussions and articles and what have you. It provides a way to encourage you to interact with it, and details about how you can contribute. So I was trying to find a way of pulling all of this into an entity that does all of this stuff. So,
Is it worth? I mean, you mentioned Twitter.
Yep.
Is it worth just on the Umbracian Slack pulling out some kind of index of interesting tweets somehow, somewhere, just for now, just to keep a note of all the ideas that we could pull in.
Yeah.
Bad
shout.
Just so we've got some content to some starting point for the content. I think yeah, that'd be a good start, and the case studies maybe is a good start, because that would then give us the exposure when we reach people to start the other conversations around, right, so you've done a website for X, what was the feedback from the content editors, that we could talk about general, what how did the project managers find it, so that could be a starter for other conversations. Maybe.
Absolutely. I think the thing that I feel quite strongly about this is that it's hard to explain until it's there and you can see some content in it. It will make sense to people, but talking about it in an abstract way without examples of content is quite difficult.
Yeah.
Still, so. But yeah, I mean, I think if you've got ambassadors in particular roles, I think they can start having those conversations with people in a way that directs the topic towards the thing that makes sense to people in that role. What is the bit about this project that you've done that I need to know about? So I was thinking if one of those blocks is like, hey, I saw this. It might be that the article is just like, I saw this link on another website, this case study on another website, but I had a chat with the person, and this is the stuff that is. So it's like a blog post, but a short blog post just about the thing that's relevant to your role, and then a link out to the case study somewhere else. There's value in that, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I wrote a thing about next steps. At the London meetup, I talked about my worry that there's a conflict with the our Umbraco website, but I'm not sure I'm too worried about that anymore, because I think that that feels like a developer resource hour, and whether it should be entirely or not long term, I don't know. It might be that over time something like this is embedded into our in a more natural way, but I think that at the moment this feels right to be separate to me. Don't know what you think about that. It is a kind of community idea rather than an HQ idea as well, I suppose. So obviously this bit, I need some help to get the site conceived and designed and built. So anyone that who might have some spare time and wants a cheeky side project in V8 or something, I've got the cloud site and domain all ready for it. It just needs like planning and making happen. So my idea after this is to go, okay, all right, let's turn this into something real. So that's probably going away and thinking it through a bit more and doing some proper wireframing and some proper spec. And I'm thinking about good ways to share that stuff. So I might put stuff onto the Slack channel, the practitioners Slack, or on and share some links on there to visual stuff using abstract, maybe. And I think what I quite like to do is without any kind of time pressure, just keep the ball moving forwards a little bit, and asking for feedback on things and seeing if anyone's spoken to anyone. What do you think? Do you think the Slack channel is the right place to do that stuff? It means that people can sort of respond in their own time a bit as well.
For me, it's fine. But I mean, I don't know. We use Slack anyways at work, but I don't know if all of the people we want to speak with, talk with, are using Slack. That might actually be an issue if we want to get more involved and people involved in this. But for me, it's fine that it's all collected in there.
Okay.
And we have one space. I mean, where else should we put it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just more like, so if we only talk about this at monthly virtual meetups, I think you end up not getting anywhere, because different people arrive, and it's different people every time, and nothing ever actually happens. So I think it needs a bit of a focus. That's all. So I don't have anything else to talk about today, so it's a bit of a short one. But obviously the next thing will be at the end of July. The next one will be at the end of July. There's the usual stuff about joining onto this. I'm very happy for you guys to talk about anything that you want to talk about while I've got you here.
Just in terms of content, I know it's probably a little bit early, but in terms of content, there's always the same set of questions that come up when you respond to tenders.
Yeah.
Maybe it's worth going through the tenders and the questions you get asked.
Yeah, from a pre-sales perspective.
Pre-sales, sales. Yeah, so like how secure is Umbraco? Those kind of things.
I had one very recently talking about the SLAs of the hosting on cloud, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, and I've seen. The SEO issues. How good is it for SEO? That could also be a part of the business side. Maybe something about speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, in a SEO perspective, I mean, that's what most people think about, and not the rest of it. But that's what most people think about, is how the site is performing. It could be anything as well. Not going into the technical details, but I mean, saying what can it do for your SEO by having better speed? I mean, I tried WordPress as well. There's some differences.
Yeah.
In speed.
Okay. All right. I think it's fine for us probably to leave it there. Thank you for coming along. As always, it's much appreciated. I think there's real potential here, so I appreciate the interest, and any kind of help or input you can give. That'd be amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
You may have the rest of your evenings back. Happy birthday, Niels.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.